We're good.
All right, let's call to order the Brandywine Heights Area School District School Board meeting for September 14th, 2020. Start time 6:11 p.m. Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Right behind you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Beaver,
Mr. Bieber informed us he will not be able to attend this evening.
Dr. Carter,
Here.
Mrs. Eisenhart, here, Mrs. Henry, here, Mrs. Hume, here, Mr. Sheets,
Here.
Mr. Wyman,
Here.
Mrs. Wolitzer, here, Mr. Tomassi.
Here.
8 present, sorry.
Okay, now go ahead. So recognitions.
So we have two recognitions this evening. The first one is for a retirement of Miss Sue Wilson. She has been with the school district for 30 years. She has served in multiple capacities, started as an elementary science teacher, and then for the last few years has served in the gifted intervention specialist role. Phenomenal teacher. She decided this summer to retire. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to join us this evening to formally recognize her. We will make sure she gets a placard and a letter from the school board of directors thanking her for her service. But she is a wonderful lady. She is one that completely gave everything she had to the kids, to the school district. This was her life. This was her passion. She worked heavily with the gifted students the last few years, as I mentioned. And the way she worked with the students to engage with them, to push them to their highest ability level. And she really understood the process for gifted students, understanding that it's a spectrum of getting them to the point to be able to take their giftedness, to take their intellectual abilities, and to be able to converse and present that. And she really understood that. She did projects with the students. She allowed them to investigate projects on their own interest. And then she made them formally, publicly present in front of their peers, in front of their parents. And it was just a great culmination of taking that intellectual ability and converting it into being able to present their thoughts in a public forum. She has been an absolute blessing for our community and for our teachers. I just wanted to take a moment to recognize all her talents and gifts that she's provided to the school district. Thank you, everyone. Second, we would like to take the opportunity to recognize Mr. Gary Gordon. Mr. Gordon is our United Way chair for the Brandywine Heights Area School District. He has done a phenomenal job serving in this capacity for the last few years. We were blessed this evening to also have Mrs. Gettle here this evening from the United Way. She has been part of the United Way Berks County staff, and she's come out to share the award that she shared this week with Mr. Gordon, but we thought it'd be a good opportunity to share in a public setting this really prestigious award that the school district received, Mr. Gordon received on behalf of the school district from the United Way. So Mrs. Gettle, I'll turn it over to you, and Mr. Gordon, come on.
Come on,
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Potter. Thank you so much. I have the, as Gary or as Andrew said, I have the privilege of presenting an award last week to Mr. Potter and Mr. Gordon and the Brandywine Heights Area School District. It is the United Way of Berks County's highest recognition. It is the Eagle Award. The Eagle Award is presented to those companies who are voted on and through a series of evaluations and awarded to campaigns who sustain excellence in campaign participation, as well as support from leadership and a lot of proven techniques as far as best practices, including the CEO endorsement, attending campaign planning workshops, demonstrating leadership giving, support. And it was such an honor to be able to come here to talk to them last week from Reading, Pennsylvania, which seems like the other end of the world, I tell you, when you start coming up to 22. The last time, I haven't shared this with you last time, Gary, but the last time that a school district won the Eagle Award was in 2012. And that was presented actually to Albright College. So it has been a number of years, and you are well deserved of this recognition. You are also in very good company, and that the Eagle Award is, I'll give you an idea of some of the folks who have been represented and won this award in previous years. Alcom Research in Sinking Spring, Carpenter Technology, Commerce Investor Services, Enersys, Customers Bank, Penske Transportation Solutions, Stevens and Lee, UTI Energy Services, and UTI Utilities. So you are in excellent company, and we thank you. A few of the highlights of your collaboration over the past few years with United Way include Mr. Pottiker's leadership since 2013. He's been part of our campaign cabinet, and we appreciate everything that he does within the education structure and community, and as far as advocating at Brandywine Heights. And of course, Gary Gordon has been coordinating the campaign since 2010. He is the heart and he is the soul of the Brandywine Heights campaign. We can't do what we do without people like Gary Gordon, and we are so appreciative of him. To give you an idea of what 10 years looks like in a campaign, I can tell you that Brandywine Heights, over those 10 years, has increased their giving by 143%. 143% over those 10 years. Your participation rate has increased 33 percentage points, and I know participation is something that is meaningful to you. I'll give you an idea of what participation rate looks like across the board. If you looked at our campaign-wide rate of participation, it's about 23%. Brandywine Heights last year, 64.25. So we're looking at all the top 100 companies throughout all of Works County. Brandywine Heights is up there, 64.25. So well done, well done. And you set a all-time high record-setting campaign last year of $28,846. Let me just give you an idea of what that looks like in terms of how that supports our community, the local community. So, not a math person, I said that before, I'll say it again, but I did crunch some numbers, this is correct. $28,846 subsidizes 16 weeks of quality childcare, preschool, during non-traditional working hours, so families can continue to work, support their families, and contribute to their community. It allows 80 youth to participate for a year in after-school programming, offering a safe environment that supports academic success, promotes citizenship, and encourages a healthy lifestyle. Assists with providing developmental screenings for 20 children, and connects families to early intervention and parent education. And supports participation of 85 children in a summer learning program to help avoid the summer slide. So that's what Brandywine Heights was able to do just last year in 2019. So with that, I am pleased to once again present Gary Gordon, surprise, with the United Way of Works County People Award.
One of the reasons why I am so passionate, she just mentioned the early intervention connection, was my family. My son went through early intervention when he was 3 years old. And that's become my catalyst all along for why I'm so passionate about this project. I have to point out to you all, though, it does say Brandywine Heights Area School District. It does not have my name. It does not have Mr. Pottiger's name. We're kind of like puppets for this United Way campaign. They have strings on me. They tell me what to say. They make me dance around. But really, I think who the congratulations goes to are the participants on our staff who do believe in this like I do and consistently give year after year. So I'm very pleased and honored to accept the award on behalf of the staff, especially the participants in this program. Thank you very much.
And just before, so he downplays that?
Yes.
But Gary took over as a 2010, right?
Yes.
2010. So our participation numbers were hanging around that 30%. since Gary has taken over, we've gotten to that 64 because of his leadership. So it is the staff. We have a phenomenal staff. I always say that, but Gary has really been able to create purpose for our staff to do the giving. And thank you, Gary. You have been such a change maker. You don't know this yet, but there's something else. You. So annually, the Pennsylvania Department of Education selects a national teacher, Pennsylvania Teacher of the Year. As part of that organization, they also create Apple Awards. Apple Awards are special awards given to an educator within a school district. Gary, we are here to present to you an Apple Award today. But by doing that, I'm going to have Mr. Farina talk a little bit about your amazing talents and gifts.
So as you all heard about the amazing things that Mr. Gordon does outside of school with the United Way, and also you've seen Helping Harvest, who comes through almost twice a month to give food to the local community. With Mr. Gordon goes out every time they're here and helps them out. I want to talk about the amazing things that Mr. Gordon does within these walls. He is just one of the finest educators I have ever been around. I think this year, more than any year, as we're operating in such a different fashion, the first thing I saw this year when the teachers were back in was Mr. Gordon pulling this giant, massive piano down the hallway, getting it into an elevator and bringing it up and then dragging it down this hallway, because even though he can't have music class in the auditorium as he likes, he's not going to not have his piano. So it's really cool as we're going down the hallway hearing piano coming out of the 4th and 5th grade homerooms. And I think when you look at that impact, I think, when you look at, some of us who have children in the high school who are in the music program, they got their music program start with Mr. Gordon. And Mr. Gordon just did a tremendous, tremendous job of hooking them into music, getting them involved. And when you look at our kids being connected to school, music is a great home for kids. It's where they make so many great friendships. And I think if you look back at all of our students in his 37 and a half years of teaching here, he started when he was 11.
Yes.
I think 11. It just shows how many lives he's impacted, and he's done it through a beautiful gift of music. So again, this award is a tremendous award. It's an apple and an eagle all in one night. It just shows how amazing you are as an educator, and I couldn't be more proud to work with someone.
Just to give you a glimpse of what this looked like, so when we did the United Way Award on Wednesdays when the teachers are working remotely, Gary had asked the administration if he could still do student lessons on Wednesdays. So he's doing student lessons up on the dark stage with the kids, and up we come with a whole entourage of doing the presentation, because that's the type of person he is. He created time in his schedule on those Wednesdays to work with the families and to come in to do the lessons. Gary, you have made such an impact, and as Mr. Frida has greatly articulated, you are such a change agent in this school district for so many reasons, and it is an honor to be working by your side. Thank you for all you've done.
Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Congratulations.
I do have some former students here. And I would like to be teaching in this room with my piano. I think we have to keep this there for board meetings. I'm happy to roll my piano down the hall. Thank you, gentlemen, for such wonderful words. I will remember this always. I'm very honored to receive this award as well. Thank you.
And the patience of the singers. If any of your kids have went, I don't know how you do it, taking them from 3rd grade, not knowing how to play an instrument, to the concert you put on. It blows my mind every year.
But he was my 5th grade camp counselor, so that really
And he survived.
Survived. Still teaching.
True.
That's right.
No.
You don't even have to spend.
I know. I can see.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Straightforward.
That's a good problem to have.
That is.
Word for minute.
Thank you.
I'll catch up with you. Congratulations.
Thanks, sir.
Well,
Thanks, Michelle. Okay, moving on to the presentation, we have with us today Mr. Scott Kramer. Mr. Kramer. He's going to present presentation on central bond model. Mr. Kramer, how are you?
And well, thanks for seeing everybody again. I decided against the Dodger mask, and we'll have to try to see masks tonight. If you're still wearing his Mets mask. So I'm not going to go through the whole handout. Your bond council is here to go through the resolution. They'll put the wheels in motion for the financing, but we're looking at two different options this evening. When I was here last month, we talked about just one option, which is on page 5, which was just the new money wrapped around your existing debt service for as little impact as we could possibly give you. And so just to refresh everybody's memory, from a month ago, column 2 is the net debt service of the district. Before we do anything, we're going to refund. We're going to leave some of your debt obviously unrefunded. Column 4 is the new net debt service. But column 5, the red box circles, what we've tried to achieve here is a level debt service payment at $2,460,000 or thereabouts. If you look at column 6, that basically causes an increase to borrow $5 million of new money, about $70,000 a year. And only extends, your existing debt runs out to 2029. If you flip back to column 2 there, it goes from 2.38 down to 719. Now, if you look at column 6, it's going to be extended to 2031. So really a nice setup, a very efficient structure to take advantage of the $5 million. After we left that meeting, we had some follow-up conversations with the administration to say, hey, as long as we're going through this refinancing and new money opportunity, given the stresses that you're all feeling in budgets, not only for probably next year, but the following year, a lot of your peers around the county, around the state are restructuring slightly to give yourselves a little bit of breathing room in the next budget or two. And so that's the next slide. And I would just point your attention to column 6, so that in addition to borrowing $5 million, we're going to give you, in shaded yellow there, the 21-22 budget, about $700,000 of relief. And we're not extending the debt any further than 2031 versus the original structure. It just fills in a little bit more out there in 2031. So again, a very efficient structure. The beauty of everything we've talked about is this is a bank loan structure that comes prepayable anytime without penalty, which is critical. Should rates move lower down the road, we can take advantage of refinancing again. But I think because we want you to make a decision this evening on which of the options you would prefer, and the resolution will give you the flexibility to choose either. I would just say paint the picture of if you find you don't need the $700,000 of that budget relief, because the bank loan is prepayable anytime without penalty, it either flows into capital reserve, or if you so choose to have the extra money, you can pay down the debt if you want to. So you have a lot of flexibility that generally doesn't come with the bond issue. And here with the bank loan that you've utilized many times in the past, you can have adjustable forward, if you will. So I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer. They're both very, very efficient structures to get the new money that you need for your projects. A lot of districts, to give you an example, we're working at Wilson School District, and they're restructured for $7 million of budget relief. So different size budget, obviously a different animal, but many of your peers around the county are doing this, not just for the IU is another example where they're taking relief over a couple of years. So with that, I'll pause and answer any questions you have. Craig does have the rate lock agreement. These numbers were ran earlier today at a 1.4% rate. The actual rate today that you'll lock in if you want to move forward is 1.42, which is actually in the commitment letter.
Did that change from the first presentation? Can't remember what was on.
Yeah, I think we ran the original numbers at 125, so it's up slightly from what we ran the original numbers, but still a very good fixed rate for the entire term, prepayable. We could have given you a lower rate that would have been non-callable, but that obviously goes against everything that we talked about of giving you the flexibility that you want to move forward.
So after we met last month, the second scenario, Scott and I started talking through that with the budget relief. At this point, it's very early in the budget process. I don't have a crystal ball to say what's our budget going to look like next year. Looking at, any indicators at this point, though, I don't see anything catastrophic happening that would say, we really need to go in and do something drastically different at this point with the budget. But I think in talking through this second scenario, it's kind of not bad to have, in my opinion, at this point, a little bit of flexibility going into the budget cycle. I think as Andrew and I have talked, we're very committed to, he wants to keep the level debt service, because, if we were to ever lower our budget, to accommodate the lower debt service, we would have a very hard time, as Andrew was quick to point out, making that up, in future years. So as Scott mentioned, all things being equal, if everything plays out perfectly in the budget, and we don't need to, use this option, if we were to elect this second option with the $700,000 of savings, those funds would fall into our general fund reserve, at which point I would go into recommendation to move that to our capital reserve fund, which we use, which we started using in the last couple of years, specifically in the facilities area, like with some of our larger maintenance projects that we have around the district that we can easily fund, in the annual operating budget. So I guess, this second scenario, it appears to be very appealing to me, just again, the ability to take advantage of low interest rates. And as Scott also mentioned, the flexibility that we have at this point, we can do prepayments on this debt, we can pay the entire thing off if we want to. It gives us, a lot of flexibility as we go into So that's some of the scenarios tonight.
So, I was gonna say one other thing, another place where we can take and utilize this money is, we're drawing down on the PSERS relief that we have, the fund that we had set aside for PSER increases. And although the PSER increases aren't as dramatic as what they've been in previous years, this would be something, we could portion off a piece of that money and put a piece of that money aside. We could also use it for relief this year. I'm not a huge fan of using one-time money to offer, a millage increase relief. However, the appetite of the board over the last couple of years has been trying to keep our, our tax increases low. This would be an opportunity for us to possibly look at that this year as well during the budget process, if we have this extra money available to us. So the reality is, I think that, for me anyway, for this, looking at this, the choice is, do we take $700,000 now, or do we take that $700,000 in 2031? I think taking it now, utilizing it to its fullest extent over the next couple of years is probably the better option for us. I'm sorry, Craig, I stepped on you.
So I think in addition to the agenda items on the board moving forward with the refinancing and new money, it's then also aligning around one of these two scenarios that will need some direction for tonight. So, do we need a motion for one of these scenarios, or our resolution covers either option? So we just decide how we handle a verbal commitment from the board to which direction we're going.
I think it's good to kind of maybe do a pro con. So if you go to page 5, and I'm not the financial expert. There's a lot of financial experts around me right now. So, but if you go to page 5, you look at the next budget relief, you can see what the increases are on the right-hand column there. And you can see that we have a fairly level in column 5, a fairly level payment plan moving forward. If you flip to column 6, or if you flip to page 6, and you do that same comparison with 5. The one thing we need to be very careful on is in that row of 2022, we're going to go from 2,300,000. We're going to drop to 1.6 million, and we're going to jump back up to 2.4 million. So what Craig articulated very well is that 700,000 is coming out of what our payment is, but we're going to have to make up for that 700,000 the following year. We have to be very careful not to say, well, let's just use that 700,000 up and take that out of our budget, because the following year we're going to have to make up 700,000, which is almost going to be impossible to do. So we have to keep that same level of essentially payment of that 2.4 million over the time, otherwise we're not gonna come up with 700,000.
Yeah, said another way, this looks just like if you were refinancing and taking one-time savings up front. You wouldn't reduce the mills in your budget for debt service for the savings you're gonna garner, you wouldn't garner any savings. So in this case, as long as you're keeping the mills in your budget for debt service at that constant level, you'll realize the 700,000, and it goes back to what it was before. But it's a very similar structure to if you were doing this for real refinancing savings, where we push the savings like we've done many times here before up into the first year. So it looks the same. But good point. I think you want to be mindful. You can't lose those bills to something else in the budget that's a recurring revenue or expense, I should say.
And Scott, the only other thing I'd point is on page 6, our annual payment is like, not much, really not really much to talk about, but it is slightly higher.
Yep, yeah, so
On,
to compare,
$10,000 maybe.
yeah, like $75,000 additional on page 5, and it goes up to 85-ish the next year. So certainly it comes at a little bit higher payment. That's, that's the cost to Mr. Sheets' point of taking the 700,000 now versus 11 years from now.
When you break that down over 12 months, that extra $10,000 a year in payment is $1,000 and roughly dollars a month in our budget, which doesn't feel like very much at all. And is it reasonable to compare just the bottom line on page 5 in column 6 to the bottom line on page 6, column 6? So we're talking about a cost of about $100,000.
Right, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Jewish.
So again, at an interest rate, I liked last month's interest rate, Scott, better. 1.25 versus 1.42, but, again, when you take a long view, when in the past 30 or 40 years have you been able to borrow this kind of money
Never.
at less than 1.5%?
Never, no. And to be honest, there's only 2 banks that are offering these ridiculous rates. And, we talked to another district, the question is how long is it going to last? And as we look over the next few months, and one of the reasons you should be commended for moving quickly to take advantage of it now, is we've got a crazy couple of months coming up. We've got election, we have another stimulus package where the PPP program that the banks had to focus on earlier this year. These 2 banks, during the first stimulus package, basically shut their doors and went away for 3 months. And so there's a possibility that comes around. So you're taking advantage, to your point, 1.4% for 10 or 11 year money is crazy. Yeah, it's really good opportunity.
Who are the 2 financial institutions for?
So this is TD Bank, the other is Chase Bank, 2 big banks that are trying to use their capital wisely through this crazy time. And the other banks are not even remotely close. They're 2.5%, 2.6% rates. They're just not in the ballpark.
So I think you answered the question I was going to ask, but it doesn't make any sense to hold off a little bit.
We would say no. We would say take advantage of it. And the other piece of it is, I think their bucket is only full of so much of this, and it's gonna dry up. Others are around you are obviously taking advantage of it, and so at some point they're gonna turn the spigot off and say, oh, we're done. So yeah, I think you want.
So kind of similar to the PPP money.
Right. Yeah.
Just wanted to ask, I knew the answer, but on that good.
I don't have that crystal ball that says rates are gonna be lower.
Yeah.
But I think this is as good as we've seen it. Yep.
Would have a preference on to either do the page 5 or the page 6?
I've already said I'm a fan of page 6.
I agree. I support option 2 then. I think that the notion that we can pay it back at any time is key.
Yep.
So that if a future board would just look back at this decision and say, what the heck are these people thinking? People borrowing money they do need at the time. There's no penalty for paying it back. So they can adjust without any negative impact if they totally disagree with this decision.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer.
You're very welcome.
You said that's already built into the motion.
Yeah, we don't need to do official motion for that, that's just direction for Scott. Approve resolution. Mayor, we can have it.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you guys very much, and we'll be in touch. We're set to close October 22nd, I believe. So we'll look at your correspondence.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks, Scott.
Good night.
Okay, we're moving to number one, board director report, and a motion to approve the items under board of directors.
So moved.
Sheets,
Second.
Wagner.
So we have a few items under Board of Directors report this evening. Any discussion about the meeting minutes from the August 17th or September 1st meeting? None heard, we'll move on. Board of Directors C is the second reading for the policy for enrollment of students, and just as a recap, what we're doing there is putting in a stipulation that when a student engages in school as a kindergarten student, that's when they become an official student of Brandywine Heights Area School District. That's what that policy change is there. Item D is to elect the school board, the PSBA officers. So it's actually a pretty easy process. We need one choice this evening. So if you flip over to the next page, you'll see that number 1, number 3, number 4, number 5, the number of candidates that are open for those positions matches how many you have to choose. So that as long as everyone's okay, we don't want to abstain from any of those, those kind of match up pretty well. The only one we have to make a decision on then is the vice president. There are 2 candidates for vice president and you can only have 1. So that's the one decision the board will have to decide tonight in making this official decision with the vote. Does anyone have a direction or suggestion for the board?
My only comment, I've heard good things about candidate 2A, Sabrina Backer. I have not heard much about anyone.
About candidate 4A.
No,
Yeah, all right.
No, I'm asking.
No, he's a good
Do you
guy.
know?
He actually was president, yeah, he's the board president when I'm on the board, so I know him very
This
well.
sounds like an endorsement.
No, he's like an excellent guy.
We don't have to call him, it's okay.
PSBA president for 2 years as well.
Oh, he was, that's right, he was PSBA president.
Yeah. Yeah, he's been a part of PSBA for a long time.
I mean, it's 2 candidates, so.
Franklin is, where's that? Where's Franklin?
Venango County. I think it was Venango County.
Is that Western?
That's what
Franklin if it's Franklin, the city is near Erie.
Oh,
I know somebody who owns Franklin.
Clinton is Lockheed.
I don't know if that's the answer.
South.
Oh, yeah, it's like Grove City.
Is that right or no?
So item 2, vice president. Mr. Nyman has some suggestions that you heard that Mr. Backer was a good candidate. Sorry, Ms. Backer. Is the board supportive of that? Or would you like to, is there anyone that feels strongly about the second candidate, Mr. O'Keefe?
Sure.
All right, so just to recap here, the president-elect will be 1A. The vice president will be 2A. The treasurer will be 3A. The PSBA insurance trust will be 4A and B. And then the school board secretary steering committee forum will be 5A and B. Okay? All right. And then the last item on the board of directors report is the MOU with the Fleetwood Police Department and Brandywine Heights Area School District. It's a 2-year MOU. So we also have one in place for the Pennsylvania State Police. That one was approved back in August 12th. And these MOUs, they're actually very similar between Fleetwood and PSP. But essentially it develops a working relationship. This is required by the state. We have to have these with the police departments. For those of you that may or may not know, Topton Borough has partnered with the Fleetwood Police, and they are doing service hours within the Topton Borough. And so because they are now patrolling that area, when Fleetwood Police is patrolling the area, they are primary jurisdiction and the PSP is secondary jurisdiction at that point. As soon as Fleetwood Police is not patrolling, PSP becomes primary jurisdiction for the area. So that's why we have to have both 2 MOUs in place for PSP as well as the Fleetwood Police Department. So that's what this MOU is.
What are the hours of operating?
I believe
Because I noticed quite a few people get
40 hours of 40 hours. Okay.
And honestly, they've been really good. They've been a good partner with us so far. They've called us, they've called a couple things on the property where they called us and just said, hey, this is, we noticed this, maybe vandalism, you want to check it out. So they've been a pretty good partner so far.
Did they increase their manpower
Yeah.
at all? Did they?
Because they also took over Western Main Township. They have a giant footprint. I don't know how they're doing it, but they cover Western Main Township. They cover all the way out to Crystal Cave. Wow. Gross. Yeah. And now top to them. We have one traffic light, so that.
So put a lot of energy.
You seen all the people getting pulled over by the speed limit?
Yeah, they do a phenomenal job during,
Yes, in the
Yeah.
morning.
In the morning. Yep.
They really do.
Sometimes see people fly.
Our customers appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just have one quick question, and I didn't ask it at the last MOU that we signed related to this, but
Okay.
there's lots of detail around, sort of the definition of drugs and the definition of weapons, and it just dawned on me as I scanned through this, do those definitions align with what's in our policy? Has anybody done that cross-reference to make sure that if in this MOU we say, you know, this is considered a weapon, that's the same as what's in our policy?
I will double check on that. I believe they are aligned, but that's a great point, a great question. I will make sure we do that research.
So, and I can just add this from the building level, because myself and Mr. Gibbs are dealing with the state police more at the secondary level. A lot of times we have seen that our definitions of drugs and weapons are far more aggressive than, let's say, what police may consider to be a weapon or a narcotic. So a lot of times, well, I should say a lot of times, anytime we have a situation where it could potentially be a weapon, we may categorize it as a weapon. We contact the police department or state police. They may come out and say, in the eyes of criminal justice code, this isn't a weapon, but we're still able to proceed with it in a certain way. So we are more aggressive, I would say.
Okay.
So.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
This is the items from board of directors.
Okay, committee reports, Mrs. Hume, BCIU, anything to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out a couple of things. So the report is as published, but I did want to draw your attention to that burkecyber.org advertising campaign that the IU is doing on behalf of the 18 school districts. I believe all 18 in the county are participating. We chipped in $2,000 each, I believe, and they bought 29 billboards around the county. They're bright red. If you drive around at all, I think you probably passed them if you haven't noticed. But if you go to burkecyber.org, because Brandywine begins with B at the beginning of the alphabet, we happen to be at the top of the list. So it's nice in particular for us. And that is getting some good click-throughs. I don't know if Mrs. Honich has seen any direct impact, like one-to-one, or not.
I don't think we have any metrics on that that say, here's the student that was in cyber and came back. Conversely, here's the student that would have went to cyber but did not. But regardless, I think it's really good advertising to say we have options that are available for families that are educational options, which we've been talking about through the summer, but here's a public way to say education is changing, and we need to be able to change with that. And we have, luckily for our schools, we've had a very well-tested virtual academy since 2007.
Absolutely. Yep, okay,
I
good.
will make a quick statement too, and I think some of the concern would be losing students to charter schools, right, at our district programs, and losing dollars while the students are doing programs. I was asked by PASBO today, they're working on a survey of all the districts and it's kind of analyzing where are your students and getting to have you lost students to charter schools, cyber charters, due to everything that's going on. So I did just take a chance to look at our numbers, enrollment numbers in charter schools today. And the data point was as of March, and then looking at enrollment July, August, and September. And we actually are seeing the opposite, where our numbers are going down for charter schools, meaning graduation. So seniors that, left those programs, we're not seeing an increase, which I think is good with the IU program is getting at, right? To keep those students within our programs. So while it's early, you know, the data point enrollments are showing a positive score at this point in the district, and we're not, you know, seeing more fun students going out to other soccer programs.
And then, just one other thing, and this is from the, PCIU's legislative update that they publish once a month. This is from last month, so August. There's a recap about, federal protections around Title IX. So again, that's the federal law that protects from discrimination based on gender. That rule took effect on Friday, August 14th, and it strengthened Title IX protections. And I bring this up only because I wasn't aware of it as a board member. I don't know if it made it to a weekly update or some other kind of committee discussion or something, but if so, chime in and stop me. But I felt like it was important because it says new resources to help students and schools understand the protections provided by this historic regulation were launched. A new website provides a one-stop resource for key info, including how to file a complaint, an overview of the rules protections for survivors, and a detailed webinar on how schools can fully implement and uphold these new provisions of the law. I believe that we as a district have to post that information on our website in terms of policies and procedures, that we have to provide training, and that we have to allow complaints to be filed 24/7 via a Title IX coordinator. So those are all things that we maybe have in place already. I just might not be aware of it. But if not, maybe we want to just kind of communicate out about that. Certainly in the current climate with everything going on around social justice, I felt like this was a timely issue for the board to be aware of in terms of those strengthening protections. And I think that's all I had to highlight. Obviously, the IU's been very immersed in preparing for safe reentry and developing health and safety plans at various levels. They have been lauded, frankly, around the state for some documents that the Berks IU has produced. I'm going to try and get my hands on those documents. One of them is as simple as a very detailed custodial cleaning checklist that is just a helpful tool. Another is talks about just basically the whole, what do you do if there is a COVID outbreak or a COVID case, and it walks through. So I know I've asked that question multiple times over the past series of recent board meetings, and as I digested everything that was in that document, for me, it was very reassuring. It made it very clear, step by step by step. And that document's been shared, I believe, with all 18 school districts around Berks, or if it hasn't been shared yet, it's soon to be shared. And organizations around the state, including the Pennsylvania Department of Education, have asked for a copy of it so that they can now use it as a tool. So again, to me, that speaks to the quality and the thoroughness of it. So I think we're fortunate so close to home to have such good tools. And it's, of course, presented in a very easily to digest way. So when I get my hands on those, I'll be sure and send them out to my colleagues on the board. That's all I have for now.
What? Mr. Nunn?
Nothing from the Berks CIP.
Mrs. Walls, are you still there?
Yes, I am still here. I apologize.
No worries. Anything from COLA?
So they did have to cancel the September meeting because it was such a crazy busy time, the superintendent and other board members. But the next one will be Tuesday, November 10th at 7:30 a.m. And it's going to be on with PASA. And we're not sure if it'll be virtual or in person, but that's the next scheduled meeting.
Okay.
Did you hear me okay?
Yes, very good.
Right.
Thank you. That was great.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right. Anything policy, Mr. White? Nope. Mrs. Eisenhower, anything strategic goals?
Remember that? One of the meetings that we've had recently.
Mrs. Hume, anything with negotiations?
Nothing new to report.
In the Lily Committee, we have not had a meeting, so nothing to report on that either. Any board comments? Okay, roll call please.
Just a reminder with roll call, although the vice president choice is Sabrina Thacker. Miss Sabrina Thacker.
Okay, roll call please.
Dr. Carter?
Yes.
Mrs. Eisenhart?
Yes.
Mrs. Henry?
Yes.
Mrs. Hume?
Yes.
Mr. Sheets?
Yes.
Mr. Wagaman?
Yes.
Mrs. Walter?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
8 ayes, motion passes.
Number 2, business and operation report, a motion to approve the items under, yes.
So moved.
Okay, we are going to ask if we can separate out item K, which is the adoption and resolution of the bond. So item K, I'd like to separate that out, and motion to separate that out. Okay.
Second.
All right, so.
Beaver's,
Beaver.
sorry, I know.
It's the math.
I know.
Mike was the motion.
Mike was the motion, right?
Not the second, and we'll go back to
I'm used to writing Beaver all the time, so.
Why is it written with the language that says not to exceed 10 million when we are in expectation is to borrow 5?
The parameters resolution is a parameter that we can follow the Department of Community Needs on the bill, and so they always give a higher number. In this case, they didn't have, when we started working on this, they didn't have the bank proposals yet. We will file without the bank proposals. So it just gave them flexibility in pricing, in case they needed to get premium bonds, which I won't get into, but they just needed flexibility in pricing, but the final provisions will be approved by Mr. Craig, so it would be within the 5 million, but that's just the parameters that you see in that.
Okay. It is much scarier when you look at 10 million. We start
So
going,
it also
wow.
says 5% interest rate, so
Yeah.
that's scary too, but
Yes, but allows you to look at those different numbers to where you see where you're paying the rest.
exactly. And a lot of times they have premium bonds now, which increases the overall cost, not the overall cost, but the overall interest rate structure, at least in 1 year, but not, it's not increasing the cost to you.
Thank you, Mr. Tomasi. For comment?
I was just gonna say, another alternative, are we sure that's it? Because 10 was the number that we went with before. Are we sure we just didn't copy and paste by accident on the agenda the 10 line?
No.
No, the resolution is for
Okay.
10, you'll see an exhibit to 10, which has their maximum schedule.
Gotcha.
And I believe it was 10, they're putting new money in as well for refunding.
Okay.
And again, not knowing the actual final amount at the time that they gave us, when this was originally done, they stuck with the higher amount.
Got it.
The final borrowing will be the 5 million as when we see the TV goes away.
Gotcha. I got the schedule, I'm sorry.
So on business and operations, any questions on items, I'll say A through E, our standard bill payments and reports. Not, we do have a agreement under the special ed section, that's 1 for students. Nothing under curriculum technology or facilities and maintenance. Item I is our IDEA Part B federal pass-through funding. For next year, the 2020-21 school year, the amount is $278,000 compared to prior year 255. So that's good news, additional revenue for those programs. And then item J, we have an agreement here with St. Luke's University Hospital to provide symptom screening services at a rate of $35 per hour. And the agreement is attached. Are there any questions on items A through J under business and operations?
Only adjustment that was recommended was that item J, the contract with St. Luke's to be adjusted instead of being the end date 11/30 to be 9/11, because that's the last day they'll provide services. We'll work with St. Luke's on that.
I was going to ask, could you just expand briefly on that? I know a couple of weeks ago we talked about the board recommended we pursue temperature checks.
Yep.
My latest understanding was that we were doing that with in-house staff. So do I understand that this is a little bit of additional supplemental staff for a short period of time?
It was exactly what it
Can
was.
you just explain
Yeah,
that?
so we had partnered with SOS and our retired professionals to conduct temperature screenings. We have been able to manage that. It's been going very smoothly over the course of the last 2 weeks, but not knowing what that was going to look like the first day, because all students getting on the bus and all the drivers and the car drop-offs and everything coming in. We asked our trainers who have been doing temperature checks throughout the summer before sporting events, so they were very familiar with the process and could do it in a very expedited manner. We asked them to come out and support us for the first 2 weeks, just to make sure that things were off to a smooth start. We were really concerned, worst case scenario, that things would get backed up and we wouldn't be able to start school in time. So it was a safeguard at the onset of this. So it was, I think the total cost ballpark is just over $400, $420. It's essentially 8 days. We used them 1.5 hours a day. And so that would be the at the $35. So that would be for one trainer, and we had 2 trainers. So that's the total. You do times 2 for that, but that 420 is for one.
So we're ratifying IMMJ as opposed to
That's
approving it?
That's correct.
Okay. I don't know that the language on the document needs to change to say that, but.
That's all I have for A through J. Roll call for A through J, right?
Yeah, we have to do a separate roll call for A through J.
Mrs. Eisenhardt? Yes. Mrs. Henry?
Yes.
Mrs. Ham?
Yes?
Mr. Sheets?
Yes.
Mr. Wagaman?
Yes.
Mrs. Walter?
Yeah.
Dr. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
8 yeas, motion passes.
And then just item K, any additional questions on the issuance of new debt service this evening? No? Roll call on that?
Mrs. Henry?
Yes.
Mrs. Ham?
Yes?
Mr. Sheets?
Yes.
Mr. Wagman?
Yes.
Mrs. Walter?
Yeah.
Dr. Carter?
Yes.
Mrs. Eisenhardt?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
8 yeas, motion passes.
Okay, we're moving to number 3, Superintendent Report. Motion to approve the items under Superintendent Report.
So moved.
Chief Eisenhardt.
So tonight, there's only one item on the superintendent report, and that is to approve a quality point scale to be used in conjunction with the district rating scale. Back in at the June 15th board meeting, we approved a new district rating scale using the A to F letters, of course, but then using a block of 90 to 100, 80 to 99, 80 to 89, and so forth and so on. So we adjusted that better aligned with what the county was using, and then further, the next step of that is to align quality points to determine GPA. And so we, again, did some research with the county, aligned with what the best practices within the county, and came up with the proposed quality point scale in front of you. So that would be what is being approved and will be applied to students moving forward using the new grading scale. Questions?
So when you say apply moving forward, meaning beginning this school year,
Correct.
2020 to
Yep, 20.
2021?
Yes.
And in effect, this makes it easier to get an A. Do I understand correctly?
Yes, we reduced the percentage down from, I believe it was a 94 before, if I remember right, of an A, down to 90.
Right, and then down to 80 for a B, an 80 would still be a B and a 70 would be a C.
That's correct.
But the other impact of that is that competitively, as our kids go to apply for colleges or scholarships or other things where these metrics matter and they're judged with these metrics, our kids will be more competitive
That's
when they are looked at across other peers. It's not changing the curriculum, they're not learning more, we're just making them more consistent with how we are told other schools judge their academics.
That's correct. It's normalizing our grading scale to what others are also grading students at. And previously, we had a more rigorous scale, so in some ways, you could say we're putting our students at a disadvantage with doing a comparison.
When doing a comparison, yes. Okay.
My only additional comment would just be, don't focus so much on the A, B, C, D, because a lot of what we do at the secondary level is more based on the percentage point anyway, and that's really not changing.
Well, it does, yeah.
Well, it goes from an individual, every single individual percent had a unique quality point that went along with it, or honor point. Now there's a slight scale that goes along with that, but essentially it's still relatively the same.
Right, so now what we're saying is my 97 is the same as your 100. Where in the past, my 97 equated to a GPA that would be slightly less than your GPA as driven by your 100.
Sure, what we have with this is additional consistency across the county for that. Not putting our students at a disadvantage or an advantage. It's more consistent with the approach of Berks County schools. So you have that 4.0 is your A, 3.0 is your B, and it's built off of that. So yeah, same approach.
The numbers wrong. Because it seems to be that the statement says it's your percentage times your quality points times either 1 or 1.2. 1.2, I'm assuming advanced placement honors 8, right?
Correct.
So I must be doing the math wrong. Because like a 99 times 4.3 times 1.2 gives me a GPA of 5.014.
So you take, if you have a 99%, you'd fall in that range of 97 to 100, which would be your 4.33 times in honors, like 1.2. So whatever that is, can't do that number. Then that's what it is, yeah.
Okay.
So I just had a clarifying point here, Mr. Potter, thank you for that. We're clumping together now, right? Where before each 99, 98 had a unique quality point metric. Now we're saying 97, we're just clumping. We're saying 97 to 100 is 433, 44, right, Mr. Volker?
Yep, 96 was one thing, 97 was another.
Just grouping 3 percentage points.
Correct.
Same.
Yeah, on the top half of the scale, it's 3. Ignore the 100%. But in the top, it's 3. In the middle, it's 4. And the bottom, it's 3.
Right.
So you're 9, or let's do 80 to 82. So it'll be 80, 81, 82. That 3% would be the same thing.
Okay.
And then the middle of the 80s would be the same. And then the top 3 of the 80s would be the same.
But the reality would be, whether you call it an A or a B at 90%, the quality point then was 3.67 before we make this change, and it's still 3.67. The quality points in essence haven't changed at that 90 level.
They have slightly shifted, yes. Yes. Because again, keep in mind, our failure rate before was 69. So at 69, people would get a 0 for the quality points. So now our failure rate is a 59. So we had 10 percentage points where there essentially were no quality points unless we adjusted the scale, which is why we needed to adjust the scale.
No, that's fine. And I mean, I don't think we necessarily need the individual points anymore because it's not like we're not working the old student ranking system. We're doing it like honors, so it's all groupings anyway.
So of course we went down. I mean, I didn't want to go too far into the weeds, but I mean, we went through the full history of how we ended up down with an individual percentage, because that is definitely an outlier based on what other school districts are doing. So we did a little bit of digging to find out why that was. And back in the day, decade plus ago, at this point in time, they were very concerned about Val-Sal because we were having a number of students that were all within 0.5% of each other, no, 0.0005% of each other for Val-Sal, and then the third place. So they got very granular to the percentage point, which kind of goes outside the norm of what we typically do now in Berks County schools. So what we're trying to do, because we don't have that Val-Sal competition, anymore. Now it's the Latin honor system. There really isn't a need to get as granular because, I mean, let's be honest, when you have two different teachers teaching the same course, you're not going to get down to the exact percent because there is some error in calculation when you have two different people doing the same thing. So we thought that this would give a little bit more flexibility and honestly more integrity to our system.
This is primarily an issue at the high school, correct? Or does this impact down into the middle school as well?
GPA only really starts at the high school.
And what is the high school faculty's perspective on this? Obviously, they had input and all that kind of stuff.
They did, but admittedly, it was a small sample set with our faculty because, truth be told, this was one of those things that was brought to my attention. It was admittedly probably my fault that I missed when we changed the grading scale. That 10% missed the honors points as we refer to them nowadays. But we're trying to shift that because people are confusing that with honors classes where that's not what it actually is. So we're trying to use the term quality points, not to confuse the system anymore. But it was a smaller sample size because we needed to move quickly because now we have colleges asking about our current grading system for our current seniors. So we needed to quickly get this in here, which is why it wasn't on the board agenda when we originally put the agenda together, and we needed to do a late add for this. So it is moving quickly.
So the answer to the question about what is the faculty's perspective?
Not all the faculty is aware.
But as we've been talking about, this is the recommendation based off of the research that was done with the other county schools, with the guidance departments got input into that, as well as other staff that were engaged in this process.
The faculty members that live and breathe this stuff are very much in the loop, in the conversation, and they're on board with everything we're presenting here.
Meaning the guidance counselors?
Correct. Is there a concern?
Yes. I may be an outlier on this. Fundamentally, I understand the background and I absolutely support what you're trying to do. This, to some degree, is kind of coming out of nowhere. It wasn't on the published board agenda. We found out about it as board members on Friday's weekly update. I fundamentally, personally, have a little bit of reservation about softening our standards. I understand that our kids are at a competitive disadvantage around the county, maybe even around the state, and certainly possibly around the country as they compete for scholarships and college spots and all that kind of stuff. But something in me, it could be my superintendent grandfather saying, it does not make sense as an academic institution to soften our rigor.
To be clear,
me personally, I'm struggling with that, but when I hear that faculty at the high school has not had the opportunity to review and discuss this, I won't be able to support it tonight.
And to be clear, we are not softening any rigor. We're changing a grading scale system that was arbitrary. It's not changing anything with rigor.
Well, but again, if I get a 97 and you get 100, I see a difference between those. That means I got 3 questions wrong on a 100 test and you aced it. And in my mind, that means you performed better on that test than I did. And therefore you deserve a better grade than I get. So that's just where I'm coming from. I see the difference there.
Okay.
I appreciate your perspective.
Yeah.
I think the key is that we made sure that we did our research on what other schools in the county are doing and did that cross analysis to find the best practice, kind of glean that out of everyone and put this in front of the board and say, hey, this is at least what others are doing.
Yeah. I also struggle at the low end too, so that's the high end. I struggle at the low end to say you can get a 61% and that's okay. In my mind, again, it could be just the way I was raised or the way I have been trained. In my mind, if I got a 62 on a test that was not a passing effort.
So you're not talking about the grading scale. I mean, you're talking about the grading scale, not the quality points. Right?
Well, yeah, I know, and we've already changed that.
Yeah, so, okay. I just want to make sure I was focused on the right thing.
Yeah, so again, 60 to 62 is D minus, 63 to 66 is a D. Yeah.
I think the reality is though, I mean, it's a matter of perspective. I mean, there's people in this country that only succeed at their job 30% of the time and they make multi-million-dollar contracts, right? You look at a baseball player, if he's hitting 300, which is failing 7 out of 10 times, you know, they're making money. I think that the system is relatively arbitrary, like Tom mentioned. The reality is at the lower end, there are students that need that to get out the doors. They're going to need that to get out the doors because they don't place the same emphasis on education as other people do.
And that's precisely my concern, which would be, are we doing them justice by releasing them into the world with what I, in my personal opinion, would describe as failing academically, not having passed the
I know many people that are
necessary
qualified as
tests.
academic failures that are very successful individuals because
There's
academics wasn't
no
where
question.
their life lied.
But this was our grading range for a very, very long time. And then several years back it switched. So this is what we've had for a significant amount of time.
It's true.
100%.
Until that balance out, you know?
Yeah, and then it changed to what I can't understand why the grading scale changed to what it was. It didn't make sense to me at all. And everyone I spoke to, it didn't make sense to them either. So we went back to a common sense approach to our grading. But again, keep in mind, even when we talk about releasing students into the world, this isn't our graduation requirements. That's something that's totally separate and coming to you in December-ish. That's based on keystone exams or alternate pathways. That's not this. We have the grading scale, which we spoke about before. Then we have the quality points that get associated with that grading scale, which is this. And then later, you're going to have graduation requirements that will start affecting the class of 22 on, set forth by PDE legislation. Okay, so there are a lot of pieces at play, and I don't want to confuse the two, which is just why I asked for clarification earlier. So there are a lot of pieces at play here, but what we're trying to do is make sure there is a common sense approach. It's something that's consistent with surrounding school districts and is not going to put our students behind the 8 ball. So that's what we have here.
And I'll just add, quite frankly, before, 69 or below was a 0.
Correct.
Correct? To me, that's brutal.
Yep.
That's just below sea level.
Correct.
Grading is 0.
Correct.
That's fair and more. That gives them no hope of going to have it.
Correct.
So I fully support.
This is what is presented to the board this evening, the recommendation from the administrative team. I'd like to see the.
Okay. Informational reports here, directly.
One and then regroup. Yeah, nothing's changed.
Superintendent and enrollment, nothing?
Nope, nothing's changed.
Okay. Any further more discussion?
I do have a quick question on the enrollment report. So, and maybe it's been updated on the online version, the one I got in my hard copy packet. So columns aren't labeled, but let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th column over under students with academic IEPs, the percentage column, the data does not seem legitimate.
It was, the formulas were not.
Yeah, it looks like it's a some cell errors or something like
It's
that.
updated online, you can have that.
Okay, much better, thank you, that makes sense, okay. And then, so we were at 1374, now we're at 1376, but I think in the spring, we were hovering right over 1400. Like 1407 is the last number that I kind of remember from several months ago.
Yeah.
So now here we are in the school year, through the summer, we have our final kindergarten number, it looks like it's 95 rather than 93. And so we're starting the year at 1376, so we're down roughly 30 students. I was just looking for sort of your perspective, maybe an administrative kind of high-level strategic perspective on, is that where you had anticipated we would land at the beginning of this year? And how do you feel about it? I mean,
So the way the numbers work, we have more graduating seniors than what we have in kindergarten, and that's been our trend for many years.
absolutely.
So when you look at it just from those metrics alone, you can say, yeah, we're anticipating a drawdown of our population. The unique thing that's happened over the last few years, though, is we've actually seen an uptick in our enrollment to buffer that gap and exceed it. So that's why we've been able to go up to plus 1,400, because we keep getting these movements, and movements are happening sporadically throughout the grade levels. There's not, we've done the analysis of it's not done at a sort of elementary level, or middle school, or high school. It's just a randomization of families that move to the school district, bring their children with them, and that student population is being dispersed across the K-12 spectrum. I believe what happened this year is because of COVID, because of housing sales initially slow, they've greatly picked up now. But that has really stymied the enrollment trends down. There's been a lot of last enrollments that have happened most recently, students that are coming in. So I anticipate that changing by October with some updated numbers as systems get caught up here. But that's kind of where we are right now in terms of what happened over the course of the summer and why we didn't see quite the rebound of other movements that had typically occurred.
Helpful info, thank you for sharing that. And I would just ask maybe for the next couple of months, particularly in a pandemic type environment and this whole virtual remote, people moving at a much higher pace in the last few months in terms of real estate and that kind of stuff. To me, it's just a really important metric. And we do report on it every month, but we rarely discuss it. And so I just thought maybe now, kicking off a new year, it would be a good opportunity to level set, get a perspective on it as we kick off the year, and then check in to see what the impacts are over the coming months.
Yep, and usually in October, that gives normalcy usually happens by October.
Yep.
And that's actually the number we use for state reporting and another metric. So we'll definitely be able to give you a better report by next report.
Sounds good, thank you.
Roll call.
Mrs. Hume,
No.
Mr. Sheets,
Yes.
Mr. Wagner,
Yes.
Mrs. Walter,
Yeah.
Dr. Carter,
Yes.
Mrs. Eisenhardt,
Yes.
Mrs. Henry.
Yes.
Mr. Tomas.
Yes.
7 yeas, 1 nay, motion passes.
Okay, we're moving to 4, personnel report, motion to approve the items under personnel
So
report.
moved. Second.
We're feeling a little hurt that you.
So the one change I'd like to point out, this was admittedly a very last minute change that occurred, but under your packet for C4A, which is the co-curriculars, there is a change there in the fine arts department head. Previously it was Dr. Grant, who is on sabbatical, that has been adjusted to be Mrs. Jennifer Johnson. So I'd ask that you just please note that as we go through the process. Other than that, the only additional item adjusted has been under leaves, E-leaves, and it's E3. That was an adjustment that's been made to allow an unpaid leave for an employee that needs it for medical conditions. Any questions on the personnel report?
Taking it as a whole, we're not going through. I mean, I do have questions. I don't know if you're ready.
Yeah.
So a couple quick questions on C4A. I don't know if that's still accurate. That was as of the draft that I had from C4A. I think it is. the co-curricular instructional recommendations.
Yes.
So, ironically, environmental camp counselor, environmental camp students, many of our own kids went through fabulous programs. So please don't take this question as lack of support in any way. I'm just curious though, typically it's scheduled for October, essentially less than a month from now. And I haven't heard any discussion about, are we doing it? If we're doing it, how are we doing it safely? What's the thinking? So we're being asked to approve 9 counselors, close to $3,000 in additional stipends, which frankly is a bargain given how you give up your nights and weekend, your nights and things over those several days. But what's our game plan for environmental camp?
So that has been delayed until the spring.
Okay.
So we're not using it. So what this spreadsheet is this lines up the individual's community events, but they do not get paid until the last pay of the year. And so some of these may not get filled. It lines the people up, but they may not be used. So if we, and I hesitate to use this one as an example, but if we would not go on 5th grade camp this year because conditions don't make it any better, then it would put us in a position where these individuals get paid. Now, that's a big what, but right now, by 5th grade, we're moved to the spring.
Okay, thank you. That's good news. Also a question, just kind of same vein, detention supervisors at the middle school and at the high school. We have kids in our building 2 days for a half day. Are we anticipating that we'll be giving students detention in the building?
So that's the same thing. It's a very similar. We haven't lined up. If conditions change, it would adjust and put those people in those positions. And it lines up the staff to be able to do those roles and responsibilities. But for now, because we're not using that, then it would be an unfilled or wouldn't be a paid position for that.
Okay, and the staff who have agreed to have their name placed here are fully aware of that expectation, or that possibility, I should say.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I think that's all I have, thank you.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Sheets?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mrs. Walliser?
Yes.
Dr. Carter?
Yes.
Mrs. Eisenhardt? Yes. Mrs. Henry?
Yes.
Mrs. Kim?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
8 yeas, motion passes.
Other business, 5. I understand we have a member here from the public who wants to give comment. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, can you please stand if possible? Are you okay? You can come down if you want to sit right in the front row here so we can.
Okay, I'll stay. I know Bernie Warren, graduated here in 1975.
Okay, before you start, can you state your name, please?
Yes, Kathleen Wizard.
And what township are you in?
I live on Bernie Warren Hill Farm. I graduated here, like I said, but I did marry a guy from Lehigh County, and I'm in the Northwestern School District. But I have a grandson that goes to Bernie Warren here in elementary down here. And I had to help him out on the computer. I am not a computer person at 64 years old. Another thing is I work at Giant. Now I took 2 days off to help my grandson, which I lost $160. Now I'm going Wednesday and I'm only going to work to 11:30 to get on that computer again by 2 o'clock. And with what I seen on this computer, like there were 6 kids on this side and then at 2 o'clock again was on this side. Some of them were like sitting still. The next thing they were annoyed by somebody coming in the house. You know, I was just so pissed. I called the district and I talked to, I think I did with Debbie. I said, Debbie, she said, tonight's school board meeting. I said, somebody's got to give here. I don't want to lose my job. I started off at $10 and got up to $12.50. Now my boss was furious because he had to pay, he had it all figured out for me to work. And now he had to give me 2 days off and get somebody else in there to do my job. Now,
times running from Monday to Friday, 9 o'clock in the morning for elementary till what, 3 o'clock. Why can't you? If you are gonna keep doing this, then wait till the parents get home and make the teachers do it after 6 o'clock. Running it like this, I'm gonna lose my job, and I don't want Jeremy to lose his job at Decker. He came furious into Mom's house and said, I didn't know you were here. And I said, Jeremy, you knew I was gonna be here. But I said, we gotta get this plugged in for 2 o'clock. And he was just furious too. And I could not believe, I was reading this upstairs, this first story here, and the teacher read the story. When I went to school, we had little books like See Sally Run, you know, just a couple words. And we all sat in the classroom and we read simple words. This is not simple words. This is fourth grade. Isn't there a thing as making up cards, I, see, the, it, is, and start the kids out slowly and put the cards together and make a sentence? I cannot believe the way you are pushing elementary kids. I still feel, and I did talk to Debbie. Debbie said the teachers do want the kids. It's like, do you just want the kids or don't just want the kids? Why don't you just try it like Kutztown and see if it's gonna work? It takes 2 parents to get ends meet. I'm just disgusted. You had the 3 kids at home and then 2 days in, and then you're running that bus for what, 3 hours? That's ridiculous too. Something's gotta change, or I'm gonna end up quitting my job because Jeremy got mortgage to do on his new home, which the property taxes are figured in and the insurance too. I do not like the way this is. I don't. I like the way Kutztown is. And there's people that work at Giant, and they're running it 2 days too, like you guys. And Josh is furious, and so is the lady that I work with, Kelly. She is furious too. And her husband works at Deca, and she works at Giant. It's like, which way do we go? Nobody wants to lose their job. We worked too hard to get where we got. And we don't want to lose our properties. And you just want the taxes paid. Why can't you just try it like Kutztown? At least give it a try. They all said it's school board. Well, here's our school board. Think of the parents. Think of the children. Which would be better? In the classroom, having the teacher without disturbance? I think so. That's why they're being paid.
Well, appreciate you coming out this evening.
And another thing I'm going to say, you were talking about property taxes. My mother is 87 years old, and I know some others that didn't even have children. When they hit 70 years, they shouldn't have to pay property taxes anymore. My parents paid 62 years taxes on brand new school taxes. And I wish they would go and take the 6 cents to 8 cents, and then it would cut the spending of these schools. So let's get something straightened out. Why should us parents, it takes 2 parents to work. Some of you have your health insurance paid. I don't.
I appreciate you coming out. Please know that when we developed this plan, we were put in a position by the Pennsylvania State Department of Education to develop a plan. There was no guidance or parameters given to us. So that's why you see At least when you compare Kutztown to Brandywine, where you look at 18 school districts in Burke County, you have 18 unique plans, because it was put on the backs of the school districts to try to figure out a plan to keep our kids safe and to educate them. I felt it was critical in developing our plan that our students were connected to our kids every day, while in a safe environment. Those two things had to come hand in hand. So some school districts are doing it a little bit different than us, but in this plan, what we developed was a way that we can still get students into school, have them connected with the student, have them connected with the teacher, and in the afternoon, if the students are not there, still connected to the teacher in a virtual world, and then flip that around at the end of the week. So I know it might be not the plan that you appreciate, or the plan that is most convenient for your family, but is, in my estimation, the safest one we can put together while we still educate our students. So I
And
appreciate
how
that
long do
perspective.
you plan on keeping this plan? For 9 months?
The school district developed a health and safety plan, which has to be board approved and also submitted to the Pennsylvania Department of Education. That outlines how we're developing and using the plan. We're using it based off of metrics. So if the cases per 100,000 that the state reports is between 10 and 100 for the county, we're going to stay in this plan. If there's less than 10 cases per 100,000 residents in Berks County, as the state reports it for Berks County, then we'll move into the green phase and go back into normal education. So we're making our decisions based off of data that the state reports.
So you're just gonna keep on going like this and I keep on missing work?
Our health and safety plan is to maintain this plan as it currently is outlined. Now, that being said, we're closely monitoring how the effectiveness is going. We're monitoring the education that's being adjusted, that's being attained by our students. We're keeping a very close eye on that. But as it currently exists, we will remain in this yellow hybrid plan based off of the metrics that are out. But we are closely monitoring, and that's why I appreciate your input and your guidance. It certainly helps us in continually evaluating this, and that's something that, as an administrative team, we are constantly looking at and will continue to evaluate through the next few weeks here.
So you just lose work and you lose $200 a week and another $800 and you lose $8,000, huh?
The decisions have been made based off of the guidance that we have from the state to put together a safe plan for our students. That has to be the priority.
I don't agree with it.
I'm sorry.
We have to lose money. And you're just gonna keep on going like this. And you just don't change your mind and say, let's try something different like Kutztown. No, you're gonna stick to your plan and say, just pay your taxes and done.
And continue to evaluate. Like I said earlier, we'll take your input into consideration, just like we're continuing to closely monitor. But at this point, we're sticking to the existing plan. Again, I appreciate you coming out this evening. I appreciate you giving your perspective of what it means to be working and trying to balance this virtual environment. And I completely understand how difficult that can be. I apologize, I really put you in a tough family situation. We realize that's a very difficult family situation. That's why we're continually monitoring it, but at this point, we're staying the course with the plan that we have in place to continue to closely look at the best way to implement this.
Well, I think you all should think it over again. And try and figure something out a little better than what the heck this is.
Thank you.
So, something I'd like to bring up after that conversation, I think perhaps there should be some remediation of whoever's answering the phone. Seeing as how the initial answer was to send the person to the board meeting without actually following the board policy of, if you've got an issue with something, to contact the school, teacher first, followed by the principal, superintendent, see if they can attain, a better resolution or some form of help versus coming to the board meeting where we really don't have a lot of opportunities open to us or really an understanding of the situation. So, like I said, I would hope that the frontline individuals answering the phones are remediated in that situation.
Understood, we'll look into this.
The other thing, I just have one thing for other business. I don't know if everybody saw or if this affects anybody else or whatever, but we're providing lunches, free lunches and breakfasts still to the kids. I think we should give some thought to maybe doing a resolution thanking USDA or wherever the, instigating parties were. Something that I don't like to bring up, but something that is an aspect of my life. As a child, as a young adult, as a teenager, there were times where, I went hungry. And for me, that is one of those things that is definitely a hot button issue for me. And, we've talked at board meetings before about, this is going back in the day, with a different board, about providing, assistance for families that maybe are too proud to seek free and reduced lunch. I've always been a fan of the idea of providing free lunches to the kids because it's not an issue of who should be paying the bill, it's an issue of hungry kids. So for me, I am just ecstatic to see this program that, every kid in our school has the opportunity to have breakfast and lunch at least, 2 days a week while they're in the building. It seems like there's the ability to pick up as well. I just think it's an absolutely fantastic program, and it really, for me, is something that's very close to my heart. So, like I said, if my colleagues would entertain it or entertain me, I would like to see, a resolution, something stating just a thank you, maybe next board meeting.
And I appreciate you opening the door for that. Mr. Hines has done an awesome job spearheading this with the food service managers. We're looking to find ways to make it even more efficient to get more food out to our families, and again, as removing barriers, as you just pointed out, we want to remove those barriers and get as much food out to our students as possible, knowing that we have a great opportunity here, but it's a limited time opportunity. We only have until December 31st, so we're working quickly to come up with some alternate plans to get more of that opportunities out to our kids.
Like I said, absolutely fantastic. So
it is a wonderful idea. I mean, and USDA started with the announcement on August 31st. Wonderful gesture, starting September 1st through December 31st. The frustration from the internal workings of it is, if we get the ability to get food to every kid, let's get it as quick as we can. PDE seemed just as surprised at the announcement as everyone else when they got it. And as you know, we don't report directly to the federal government, everything flows through the Pennsylvania Department of Education. So there was time loss while PDE's like, hold on, we have to, interpret this and see what it means for all of the school districts. So it is frustrating that it's September 14th, and this is the first day we started delivering free meals to everyone today. As it takes time to get guys from PDE, and then for us to assemble ourselves internally and how we can actually execute this and pull it off, which, like Mr. Potter said, it's a testament to our food service workers who've done a lot since March when all of this started and continue to be flexible and move with this. And we're hopeful to make some tweaks to the program, to continue to be able to get pushing as much food out the door as possible. So more to come.
You guys doing a fantastic job. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, bravo.
That's all I had. So I gotta go.
You got a minute. Just a second.
Okay.
Just before we go, folks who need to go, I understand you got some sentences. I wanted to tee up a couple of things. I don't need answers on these tonight. But to me, I've been as I went over the agenda and sort of thought about where we've been since the spring, to where we are now and where we need to continue to go. I tried to kind of think strategically. May I just plant some seeds of questions that it might be helpful to have maybe for next month's board meeting, some brief updates. One of them is sort of where we landed financially as of June 30, like as of the end of the school year. Craig, you do a great job giving us all those reports, but if you could help us, what's the elevator speech on it, if you know what I mean? Rather than us having to dig through and make our own conclusions, and individually we might be making different conclusions. If you could just do maybe a quick, here's where we landed budget versus actual on the high level things, and how much our positive variance was at the end of the year. We sort of have come, at least in my tenure on the board, to expect this $600,000 or $700,000 or $800,000 positive variance at the end of each school year. So I'm just curious, where did we land? And we might not know just yet because of audits and that kind of stuff, but if you can just give us kind of a status update on that.
Yes, I'd be happy to, and as you know, Fund accounting is a little bit different than pool accounting, which is modified cash, and unfortunately, it drags out. I'm used to a corporate where we can close your books in 2 days and have the answers, and that's report and close report to your shareholders. Unfortunately, school districts don't work that way. Our auditors are scheduled to be here next week, so we are working through all the final year-end adjustments. We also have delays in funds from the state as well as federal government. So timing of all that is difficult to give a timely answer, unfortunately. I do anticipate that we'll be favorable to budget in the amount that we deliver to the general fund. So we'll have that, final number either in the next either October or November.
Yeah, and again, totally understand those constraints, looking for sort of high level, fat thumb, assuming we get the money coming in that we anticipate and assuming there's no major snafus with the audit, which there never appears to be because you guys do such an outstanding job. Just, high level. So that would be helpful.
That, yeah, in the early summer, we experienced probably about $500,000, and I'd say that's directionally where I'm at right now.
Okay, all right, that's good to know. I thought as I went through the check register, a lot of COVID-related expenses, and certainly we don't want to be focused on how much is this costing us, but at some point in the future, I can imagine that we will be asked to say how much did we invest in COVID-related or pandemic-related enhancements to our program. So it just dawned on me, it would be much easier now if, as we spend, we're flagging it somehow on a list or with a checkbox or something, so that in the future, when we're asked to report on that, it won't be a mountainous chore to go back and dig through every line item expense. I think it might also just be helpful for us to kind of, again, directionally understand, we know we're spending on stuff that we absolutely have to spend on, and we support that, and direct you guys to do that. To me, I think we should just be aware and keep a tally of that, so that it's not, again, a huge amount of work in the future.
Our accounting software is based on the Pennsylvania Department of Education Start of Accounts. They did open up COVID-related account structure.
Oh, really?
That into our system. We're using that to track our expenses. So we have a handle on everything that we spend. Mike and Tom, both of their parts, are doing a great job. That's where the majority of the spend is coming out of. They're doing a great job working with the business office to make sure it's all tagged appropriately, so we can run reports and do analysis.
Fabulous. That's good to know. Yeah.
And also, as a reminder, we have gotten several grants cover a lot of those expenses. Being at this point that happened, how long this will go on, at this point, we don't see a budget buster happening because of it. Thankfully, these grant dollars have been awarded to us, but we are.
Awesome, good, okay. So again, similar to what I said, how are financials looking so far in terms of planned revenues and planned expenses? I got a postcard at home, so it's from a real estate agent who's, promoting the fact that the average sales price in January through July in Brandywine Heights School District, the average home sale price is now $231,000. I was stunned by that. I don't know if that shocks anybody else, but to me that sounds like a really high number, when in the past we've said that in our district, the average home assessed value, I know different assessed versus sale price, but home assessed value is, I thought we were told 106. So when I saw 230, I was like, wow. I know there's a lot of real estate activity in Berks County. So again, we're helped by every sales transaction, right? 1% transfer tax or something, I don't know. But again, if you could just, to me, that's a good news thing. So, at some point, if you have the opportunity to share an update on that, that would be helpful. In terms of technology, again, huge system conversion this summer. We're still working through some of the pain points of that. But last year, I think it was last year, we engaged with a whole new company, Nimble IT, and things went super well. Infrastructure, network, Wi-Fi, all this stuff is so crucial, way more than it had been in the past. We thought it was crucial in the past. Now, boy, it's even more crucial than ever. Again, just a 2-minute status update on how are things going? What do you see in terms of anticipating in the future? What do you need from us other than just continued support? Do you know what I mean? Just kind of update on technology, where we stand. I was thinking about sports when I looked at the coaching assignments and stuff. So haven't gotten an update on how has this situation impacted participation by our kids. We're not letting them in our buildings except for 2 days a week. We are supporting sports. We've got this whole issue of now we're going to start to compete, and do we allow families to attend and all that kind of stuff. So I'm thinking about, are we able to field teams? Because some of these kids are choosing to school virtually. Maybe that also means their families are choosing not to let them come play. I don't know. And maybe I feel out of the loop because I don't have a child in the school anymore, so maybe you guys don't need the update as much as I do, but I'd love to hear just a quick update on that. And then finally, from an academic perspective, I was thinking about classes like Project Leads Away. I think I saw a budget line item that we got, we renewed our license with them or whatever. So we've toured that class over the years. That is a hands-on class with these kits and these cool computers and all this electronic wizardry. I got thinking, how are we supporting that curriculum this year? I know we are, but to me, it might be helpful for us to understand Project Lead the Way, woodshop. I don't know how you do woodshop projects if you can't access the saws and the materials and stuff. Home ec, I know that's not the right word for it anymore. But those types of classes, art, certainly we had some staffing upheaval, particularly at the high school level. How are we doing those kinds of things? So again, not in the weeds, high level, maybe tell us a story or to music. There sits Mr. Gordon. To me, music's easier because it's sound-based as opposed to, although playing an instrument certainly. But anyway, I personally love to hear some good news stories and some updates on how resourceful our staff is being and how our kids who really thrive in these types of specialized programs are able to continue to thrive. So those were just, seeds planted from my perspective.
I think it's great. I mean, I think at this point, though, we're 3 weeks in, so I think give them time to absorb this. And
absolutely, yeah. October, November, just give us some, even in weekly updates. But again, to me, it's much more compelling to hear Tom say 3 sentences about what's going on than to read it in a weekly update that has 27 other things. Yeah, to let everybody hear, and respond to it in terms of support and for questions. Thank you.
I do have to announce an executive session before this meeting regarding property matters in the district. Any other discussion? Have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Second.
All right. Adjourned at 7:54 p.m.
You have to say that